Hey folks,
Hello.
welcome back to Wandering into Wellness. Finn and Lydia here as per usual. And today we've got a very special guest, Dessie Fitzgerald. So Dessie is a former hurling player, played to intercounty level with Cork. And Dessie had a major accident, and it's sort of the reason we're here to talk to Dessie is because his response to that was not what you'd expect, and he's got a pretty inspiring story. So I guess Dessie, maybe take it from the top. I don't know where you start. But
I'd like to. Can I jump in? I would love to know, actually, before that, to go back. Can we look at when you were a child and you were growing up? Was it something that you had always thought for yourself, that you were going to be a sports player, that you were going to be into sports? Was that how you'd imagined your life?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I started playing when I was 8. We started off with these under-8 town leagues here in Charleville, and just absolutely from that moment of running out to the pitch, just absolutely loved it. Really? Just the camaraderie of it all, the friends we made, and I would have been that bit quieter in school. So when I came out here and I got an opportunity to play sport, it was just a way to express myself in a way. And from that moment on, from 8 up until I had the accident, I spent such a huge portion of my life just heavily involved in hurling in particular. I played rugby and football as well, but it was mainly hurling. So
that's the GAA life, isn't it? I mean, it's like, because we're one of the very few countries, I think, that has a sport that is played to that high a level, but at an amateur level, that your work, your life, and then your sport life, it's so all encompassing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And towns get behind that as well. I mean,
big time.
It's such a big part of the community kind of aspect, and I mean, we can see there's a big match about to take place today, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, there's already people out on the street. You can tell something's about to happen.
There's a positive vibe around the place, so there is. Yeah.
And when did it get serious for you sport-wise? Do you remember kind of when you were or was it always just a progression thing? Or did you kind of
it was a progression thing, I think. It probably when it was the aged 15, I started playing with Cork under 16s. From that moment on, I was like, oh my God, this is actually getting full on now, and you get a lot of pats in the back, and you're known wherever you go around the town, or even outside of the town here. And so from that moment on, I was like, do you know what? This is something I'm really, really enjoying. Getting a chance to play with Cork minors as well. And I went to St. Coleman's for the last 2 years in school, which is a school in Fermoy, but mainly a hurling school. Okay. So we went there for 2 years, and we won a Hardship Cup and an All-Ireland there as well. So so absolutely loved every minute of it. So I did. And in a way, you mentioned about how your life, can revolve around, work or school. Or, predominantly with me growing up, sport would have always come first. I remember my parents cancelling a holiday, but I was only 12 years of age. We were supposed to go to Donegal for a week, and they were like, oh no, we'll put it off because we had just an Cork final. So
really?
At the age of 12. So obviously for my parents, sport was a big thing as well.
And I was going to ask, so was your mum and dad, did they play, or did they just?
My dad did, yeah. My mum would get involved in it after she saw how much we enjoyed it, but my dad was always mad into hurling in particular,
And you've got brothers and sisters, you had?
Yeah.
How many of you were there growing up? 3 brothers?
3 brothers, yeah,
all boys.
All 4 boys. No,
wow. So your mum just had to get into it.
Yeah, exactly. She had no choice. There was no dolls, nothing like that. So she was either going to play along with the sport thing, or she was,
she just
could have been a lonely.
And all your brothers, were they into sport too?
All of them, massively so. So Connor and my brother is involved now today in the county finals.
Oh, really?
And did you always play the same position? Did you move around the pitch?
Yeah, mainly centre back or full back.
So defensive mindset.
Defensive mindset.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And do you think is that feed? I'm always interested. Does that feed in from your personality? Do you think, in terms of, because I always play defence as well?
That's interesting, actually. Never thought about it like that. Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
It's something about a protective role.
Yeah,
it's a different thing.
And I'm the oldest as well within our family, and I think as the oldest, you kind of take on this role of being the protector in some regard to your brothers and family. And maybe the same out in the pitch. I had the same attitude as well. It was got to hold this together now in the in the back. So yeah.
So did you captain teams? Did you?
I did captain Charleville here, so I did a couple of years. And yeah,
how'd you find that? What do you like? Does the captaincy thing come naturally to you? Or are you like?
Kind of grew into that. I could never see myself when I was younger. I'm like, I would never been a person to speak up in the dressing room. You know, I let it up to the older lads or the lads more mature than me. But as time progressed, then I felt that I was the one that was becoming the elder one in the team, and I was like, okay, got to step up here. And then it did happen pretty naturally when it occurred. So it was something I enjoyed.
Okay, great. And so one of the things that I've seen referred to online is when you played against Dessie Fitzgerald, you knew you were going to be playing against Dessie Fitzgerald. He was a hard man of hurling. Is that a reputation that you were aware of when you were playing? Maybe a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, I would have been a little bit. I always would have been quite determined on the pitch. You know, would have taken it very seriously when I was there, because I always had this just do my best attitude and this kind of, you know, win if we possibly can at all.
Okay.
That would have made me quite driven in on the pitch.
Okay. Yeah, which can come out in aggression.
Yeah. Maybe too much so. Maybe this is what happens to me.
Jeez, wow. So maybe get around to that. So what then? What happened? What was it?
Yeah. So we played in a county semi-final back in 2011, and my younger brother Mike had passed away 2 months prior to that, and the lead up to the game was pretty full on, so it was, and you know, I just had it all built up about we had to win this game, and there was a lot of intensity around it. So we played. It was midday we played, but anyway, about 25 minutes into the game, I saw one of the opposing forwards who were just going to strike for goal. And I just got it into my head. I was like, oh my God, we cannot let them score now before half time. So I sprinted back as fast as I could and dived in for a tackle, and the two knees I got to the chest here caused my head to spring back and forward. And just after the impact, I was in a daze for a second, and I was like, I thought I had a head injury.
Okay.
And I was just lying flat. I came around after a second or two, and I was there, I was like, what's going on? And after about a minute, I was like, oh my God, I can't move anything from below my shoulders down, which is, just freaked out in the spot.
What was happening in your head? Were you thinking, immediately, I can't move, or were you thinking, what happens if I never move again? Or did you stay in that immediate?
For me, it was just like, initially it was like, this can't be happening. And then people were running over, and luckily there was two nurses on the sideline that were there, because they were actually going to lift me off the pitch to the side. If they had done that, there's no way I would have possibly moved again, I'd imagine.
Wow.
But yeah, when I was lying there at the beginning, I was like, this can't be happening. And the image of Mike passing away 2 months ago came into my head. I was like, how can all this be happening? And then I was like, no, do you know what? I was trying to calm myself down, and people around me were trying to calm me down. They were coming over talking to me, and my mum and dad were at the game. So they were there just trying to keep me somewhat composed. So I tried to block it out as best I could, but then an ambulance came, and I was brought into the ambulance, and that's when I just felt like having a full-blown panic attack, because I knew how serious it was. I was like, this could be, this is going to be life-changing to some degree.
At some level that was.
I didn't know, to what degree as of yet. So,
Had you had a panic attack before then?
No, never had a panic attack.
Okay.
And I was in the ambulance and just held it back. It was only until I got to the hospital.
It's an overwhelming feeling, having a panic attack.
Yeah, it's completely overwhelming. It happened to me in the corridor when we arrived in the hospital. Then I just wanted to roar and scream. My heart was pounding. It was just nightmare
And it must
scenario.
have been even exacerbated, because I know when I've had panic attacks, it feels like I can't breathe and my heart isn't regulating itself, and I'm constantly just trying to feel my body and feel that it's okay. And for you, not being able to have that sense of feeling there must have really been even more. It wasn't like you could go, no, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
You were like, no, it's not.
I was like,
fine.
this is not fine, just staring up at it. I remember the fluorescent light, I'll never forget it, just looking up, lying in the bed and just lying in the, on the bed and just freaking out and just wanting to roar and scream, but not even able to be doing that. Not being able to do that.
We podcasted with a lady, Fiona Cribben, a few weeks back, who is a cancer survivor and trooping through it, but she had a panic attack that she thought was her dying, and literally went through 4 days of this thing, and it was that visceral that she was like, oh, this is what it feels like.
She'd like say goodbye to her whole family, say goodbye to her children, I'm dying.
And having not had a panic attack myself, I mean, it gives me a sense of how totally overwhelming that is, how not, you can't understand what's going to come next. There's no like sense of what's after this.
I remember Brezzy, Niall Brezzy, him talking about a panic attack, how he used to have these chronic panic attacks, and he started running. So as soon as he would feel the panic attack come on, it would always be he'd wake in the night, panic attack would come on, he would start running. And that one day the panic attack was so strong, he started running, and I think it was 12 o'clock at night or something, 8 o'clock in the morning, he was still running.
Wow.
Just running, because he just have to keep running until this is finished. And that's how full on it can be.
And that's how much he didn't want for it to take control of him. He just wanted it to pass.
The instinct to run is
better than
staying.
The consequences, exactly.
And so then, what did they say to you? What was the time that you got a prognosis, as it were?
Yeah, so I was in Cork initially. Then I was transferred to the Mater Hospital in Dublin, and I can vaguely remember just lying in the bed and. Remember the doctor coming in, I think it was the following morning or it was early in that morning, but he said that the injury was an incomplete injury, which meant that there was a chance. So I damaged my spinal cord at C4, so I fractured a bone at C4 and also damaged my spinal cord there. And you either have a complete injury or an incomplete injury. And a complete injury means that that's most likely it. You won't move from wherever you've had the injury down again. But my injury, luckily for me, was incomplete. It was diagnosed as central spinal cord syndrome. So the blockage was in the centre of it, but around either side of it, then there was a gap. So some signals might make their way around.
Wow. And so, what did you feel when you heard that prognosis? Was that prognosis to you at that stage? Okay, well, this is something I can deal with, or was it kind of like, this is end of? Did it close doors or open them, or what did it do?
No, it definitely opened them. I mean, it could have been told in that moment it was a complete injury, that was it.
Okay.
That would have been just, I don't know how I would have handled that. Yeah. But hearing that it was an incomplete injury and there was a chance, and maybe there wasn't a chance, but hearing there was a chance just gave me that glimmer of hope in that moment, and I just latched onto that with everything I had in that moment. I was like, okay, there's going to be a chance here.
So what did Dessie do next?
What did I do next? It was just so strange. For a while, I spent the first period just obviously not being able to move.
And in hospital for how long? Sorry.
So I was in the Mater Hospital for 5 weeks,
and
then transferred over to Dunleary, the National Rehab Hospital over there. And it was surreal. I was getting these small little bits of movement back in my feet and my legs.
Like very randomly, very arbitrarily, or just like
starting off with my left leg. I remember my foot, and then it kind of progressed up along that leg on a real gradual basis. Now it could be, it's a weekly thing. It could be something different I would be able to do. And progressed from my left leg. Then it went over to my right leg. Started getting twitches and that, and it moved up. And gradually, as the months progressed, then it kind of moved upwards to my upper limbs as well.
Wow.
My thumb was the last thing to.
Your thumb?
My thumb was the last thing to move.
No, weird.
Which was strange.
Was there an expected progression?
Yeah, it was because the injury, the doctors were saying that because the injury to my neck was, and my spinal cord was in the centre of it, that's where it feeds your upper limbs, your hands in particular. So that's why if you're going to get movement back, that was why that would be the movement to come back last.
And you were engaged at that point?
I was.
And how was that for her?
Oh.
How did she handle it?
So we were engaged the Christmas before, and so I had the accident. Yeah, so straight away she just rallied behind me straight away, and I remember after happening, me being in the bed and just like, what if I don't come around out of this? Like, how can I stay with this woman and have her to have to look after me?
So you were feeling like a burden, or?
Oh, I felt like a burden straight away.
Okay.
And when I thought of the wedding, I was like, initially I was like, we cannot do this. There's no way I can go ahead with this. Sarah, she just absolutely a Trojan of a woman, was just so adamant. She's like, no, we'll be fine, we'll get through all this.
Wow. What age were you guys at that stage?
29.
Okay.
Yeah, so
young
Sarah,
folk.
Yeah.
That's a big.
So it was my 29th birthday, the day after the accident, and Sarah was 30. 2 weeks after that.
Wow.
So I was in the Manor Hospital and she was having her 30th, and we were, just had planned our wedding in terms of the venue and everything else. Sarah had done most of that, if I'm very honest. So yeah, like just completely threw us, but she was just an absolute rock afterwards.
Wow. And did you learn new things about her and your relationship from that? What did it teach you things about? Like, were you opened up to sides of her or sides of yourself that you weren't expecting?
I always knew Sarah was a really, kind-hearted, compassionate woman. Didn't know to the degree to what level she had it, because picked a goodie for sure. Oh my God. Because I would like to think that I would have been able to do the same thing for Sarah, God forbid if it had happened to her. But seeing how strong she's been, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I would have been, as powerful as you through it all. So so she just stuck by me, because there's been so many high points and so many low points throughout this whole thing. She had to go through a phase of washing my teeth and dress me and do things we take for granted every day. So it was fine we were in hospital, but we had to go home having to do a lot of those things.
It's an unusual dynamic. I had a boyfriend once who just got very ill, ill in hospital. He had dengue fever when we were in Thailand, and there's a point in dengue fever where there's 3 days and they're looking at the virus and you can either die or not die, and they don't know until you just have to watch the blood count, and it goes one way or the other way. And he was completely, in hospital, he wasn't able to do anything, and drips and everything, and it was for a period of 2 weeks or something. But it was to say, I had to do everything, completely everything, from wash him, take him to the toilet, dress him, everything. And even just seeing the shift in how it is in a dynamic in just that 2 weeks, it's a huge thing to adjust to, I think. And
because I think you turn from being a partner to somebody to a carer in a way. That's what Sarah turned to, and we spoke about this ourselves. Like, she did have to take on that role of almost being my nurse when we came home, and that is a pretty full-on thing for somebody to have to do. And
it leaves you really vulnerable, right?
Yeah, completely.
As a man who was a sports hero, somebody who attached to that idea, how on earth did you cope with that? Like, in your head, that must be. I mean, it's tough for anybody, but somebody who's traditionally been a powerful guy. How did that play with your head? I mean, it must have been. I
struggled with it. Really struggled with it at the beginning. Couldn't get my head around it. From being a man that was running around the hurling field to this just being completely open and having to rely on everyone do everything for me. I struggled mentally with that. I was just in a period of denial, or just, it wasn't denial, it was shock from it all at the beginning, which is probably the best way for it to be, just because it was the way of my mind's way of, okay, it'll sink in gradually if I stay in a state of shock, which is what happened to me. But then it did start to sink in. It was just like going through phases of not wanting to get out of bed in the morning, just being completely depressed and wanted to shut myself off from the world, because I had so many friends and so much support around the place, but I didn't want to be anywhere near them, so I didn't.
Had you ever had an awareness before that point of mental health struggles, of depression, of anxiety? Was it something you had experienced, or anyone close to you had experienced? Did you have a framework to cope with that and to be able to recognise, or was it just a completely foreign? No,
it was very foreign to me. So it was. I don't know. It's maybe a man thing and an Irish thing, but I completely I'd never really got into my feelings in the past. I'd never gone in there. I was like, if I had a feeling of sadness or anxiety, for example, I'd be like, okay, what do I need to do to change this now? Do I need to go for a run? Do I need to go and play sport? Do I need to do whatever, something outside of myself, so I wouldn't have to feel this way? So that I had a kind of a strategy beforehand, which worked up until that point. Well, maybe it did work, maybe it didn't. But then after I had no outlet in terms of when all of these feelings were bubbling up inside of me, I wasn't able to go for a run, I wasn't able to do anything. I was just completely open, and I was just like, so it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I didn't know how to cope with them or deal with them, or.
And was anyone, because obviously in my work it's a lot about feelings and meditation and breathing and all that stuff. So for me, there's this huge wealth of stuff that you can tap into, and all the people around me would be in a similar thing. So I feel like in my situation, there would have been all these people coming, going, you can do this. did you have anyone who was coming to you and saying, you could try this breath practice, or you could try do this meditation?
Yeah. When I was in hospital up in Dunleary, there was a counsellor and psychologist would come around. But when I was in hospital, it was strange. I was able to kind of compartmentalise everything. It was as if I was just focused on my rehab and nothing else. So then I didn't have to feel everything that was going on. But for me, it was when I came home, that's when all of these feelings started to arise to the surface. And I didn't really have. Yes, people would tell me if you give this a try, this will work. If you meditate, or and I had read self-help books, but I was just not in the right headspace for anyone to tell me what to do. And I went to see a counsellor at one point, and I just wasn't ready for any of that. I was just totally and utterly lost and down and out, and I just was not open.
What were your kind of? I always think fears are an unusual one, because it's usually based in long-term future. Fears are not usually about the immediacy of something. It's usually like, what if this continues for 1 year? What was it that were your big things in your head that you were fearful of at that time?
Initially, it was so when I was in hospital, it was all about movement and not being able to have kids with Sarah, and maybe not getting married, whatever. All of these things that were going to happen in the future. But when I came home and I was in that state of just being depressed, my fear was remaining depressed for the rest of my life. Lying in bed, not wanting to get up, and going, this is going to be me for the rest of my life. And that just amplifying then as a result, with those thoughts coming up, and then the whole, what if things could be different? Why did this have to happen to me?
And this is all before your wedding. You still have a wedding planned at this stage, yeah?
No, we had.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. Yeah. So the wedding happened whilst we were in hospital.
Okay.
Whilst I was in hospital, sorry. Yeah. So we had the wedding planned for the March. I was in hospital in October.
Okay.
And we asked the doctors when I was in hospital, we were like, would this be a good thing to do? And they were like, yeah, it would be, yeah. We were like, all right, okay.
Wow.
We were like, all right, okay. And anyway, we just got caught in a whirlwind, and we just said, come on, we'll go along with it. And Sarah was like, no, we definitely want to do this. Let's go for it. So we did. So I left hospital to get married. We had planned to go on a cruise for a honeymoon, but we got into Sarah's car, and we were allowed to get a ferry across. She was driving a Toyota Yaris at the time. So we loaded up with wheelchairs, every sort of medical item you can think of. You can imagine the back of a Toyota Yaris, and we went off over to England. Looking back, and I don't know, luckily we can laugh about it now. It was insanity, absolute insanity.
But the doctor's kind of like, have you packed the whatever piece of equipment?
It was just crazy stuff. But we did it, and it worked out. Don't know how, but it did.
Wow.
And the wedding was a great day. We're looking back, and I know we were like, how did we actually do that?
Yeah.
It was,
that's impressive. You make a comment in the video we were watching of you, where you two brothers, or your two brothers, yes, helped you kind of stand up at the top of the aisle. I mean, the feeling and the emotion in a church during a wedding is already kind of heightened. It must have been, like, for everybody who was there.
Oh yeah, you could sense the energy
so
around.
Intense.
Yeah, it was crazy stuff.
So you came back after all this then, and so this is kind of like the aftermath of the aftermath.
So I went back to hospital after that. So we came home from the honeymoon. With the honeymoon. So I went back to hospital again. Spent another couple of months in there, and came home then. And I had to try and get into normal
real life. Yeah,
get back into reality again. Because when you're in hospital, you're surrounded by people that are struggling with similar injuries, more severe injuries than me. People are a lot worse off than I was. And when you're in that bubble, you're like, this is somewhat normal. Yeah. And you come back out into, town here, trying to meet my friends again, trying to get back into socialising, think of work and everything else.
What was work before, and what were you planning to do? Had you thoughts of going back to what did you work at?
Yeah, so I worked with an American company, Cognex, an amazing company. I done electrical power systems in college, finished that degree and started with them. I was working with them for about a year and a half, and then had the accident.
Okay. Wow. And was there any thought that you'd be able to get back to that? Was there a version
and there still is to a certain degree. So I'm still on their books, so I am. They've just been absolutely,
Wow.
yeah, so supportive throughout the whole thing.
Wow.
Right now I'm not in a place because if I sit down for too long I will seize up, and a lot of it was hands. I've done a computer for a lot of it, and my hand function is seriously being
we're not
impacted.
touch typing yet.
No, definitely. It's more tongue, more fists, more than
There's a new keyboard needs design.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all going well in the future.
Yeah.
When you came back, I imagine what I imagine the situation is that you're just being faced with comparison constantly, because you're thinking about how it was versus how it is, how it could have been versus how it is, and then looking at your friends and you're looking at yourself and all of those kinds of things. What did you notice in terms of the environment and how it's set up for people who have different levels of abilities physically? Was it frustrating? Was it hard to get in through doors? Was it hard to, is there a good setup or?
No, there's not, to be frank about it. Fair enough you go into the larger areas or cities, but even in cities, if you're in a wheelchair, if you want to go for dinner, for example, myself and Sarah, that was our way of escaping at time. We'd go for dinner. The planning that had to go into it.
Wow.
Because so many restaurants, if they didn't have a step going in the door, there would be a step to go to the bathroom. Or in one place I went to, it was like, it's all sorted. Next thing, the wheelchair fit into the bathroom, but the door wouldn't close behind you. Just stuff like that, So I don't think we're designed, or this,
Have you seen
environment
improvements, or have you seen
I have. It's something I've taken more notice of now since the accident. Obviously, even when I'm on crutches, and I see places that are newly built. They do cater for wheelchairs, for example. But the majority of buildings around Ireland are old buildings.
Yeah,
they're not
that's the
designed for
challenge.
people with even footpaths.
That's what I was
It's an absolute struggle. So it is in so many areas. So
and all of those things are constantly reminding you.
Yeah, you have a disability. You're different than everybody else here,
exactly.
and you kind of feel worse because in some occasions, there's one occasion I fell out of the wheelchair, but if it just makes you feel more down and out about yourself, if you have if footpaths are designed in the right way, you don't feel as bad because you're not. The likelihood of something happening, such as falling out of the wheelchair, is certainly less. You just would definitely make you feel better about yourself if it was if the place was designed.
Disability design.
Yeah, for sure.
Are the places you've travelled abroad or anywhere where you've seen them do it better, or is Ireland relatively where do we stand on the scale?
We went to Spain, which I definitely found better, but it was in a resort area, so I can't compare what we've been like in a town or village. So exactly, real life. It's actually not holiday mode.
Okay.
So I can't compare.
Yesterday evening, we just finished a podcast that we were doing, which is titled something like Redefining Masculinity, and looking at male archetypes, the traditional male archetypes that have been around, and then what is it to be a man kind of now in this environment with all the stuff that's going on and the Me Too movement that's been happening and all this kind of stuff. And it was making me think of you and thinking about, I spoke to a friend of mine who'd grown up, who's a gay man who'd grown up in the middle of Ireland in a small community, and he was talking about it was so hard for him to live in that community because he felt like the men in that community all ascribed to a specific ideal of a man, and they were all playing sport and they were all physically bigger and they didn't talk about their emotions and they were kind of more dismissive, and there was all these things that he felt like everyone had to conform to, and if you stuck out in any way it was just being pointed out. He was being called all the time, you're a girl, and that was the slag. It's like, you're a girl. And he eventually had to move away from that to find himself. And when he came back recently to that, years later, he's now living back at home, he said nothing's really changed, but he sees that all those men are kind of trapped within that now. He feels free that he's expressed himself and he's happy with himself, but he sees that they're all stuck with this thing where they can't talk about their feelings, they don't have the permission to do that, and everyone's feeding into that. And I was thinking about, for you, having grown up in that and then having been this big sports star and having that as your identity, how was that to have to redefine that thing in your head of what is it to be a man? That
was a huge struggle for me, because my definition of a man beforehand, you conform to those you're surrounded by, and beforehand it would have been like a man doesn't express himself, he's not open, he doesn't show any vulnerability, he doesn't need to get into meditation or start talking about his mental health, because he can do something that will separate himself from that to a certain degree and keep himself busy. But for me, that's me bottling up all of the emotions that I was holding on to. That's what led to me feeling so down and out for so long. But then I found this workshop. I went to a workshop after it happened, because I got to a point whereby I was just at wit's end, and I knew I couldn't continue on with this anymore. I knew that I had to get some form of release. And I found this workshop ran by a Canadian couple, a Clear Mind workshop, and I went to it. It was a 3-day workshop. It was on a Mead. My parents dropped me off from what I can get on, and Sarah as well. They were like, "Hope you're going to be." It was my first time leaving them for a weekend, but this is something I knew that I had to do. Wow. So I went, and I just opened up for 3 days. The way the environment they had created just felt so safe. I cried, screamed, roared, did whatever I had to do just to let out all of this stuff that I was just holding on to. And it wasn't just stuff that I was holding on to from the accident and my brother's passing away. It was stuff from prior to that as well. Because as men, we have a tendency to hold on to, these, whatever it is, sadness, anger, and it seeps out in some shape or form then afterwards. But that release from me was a complete turning point, and that would have changed my definition then of what being a man is today. Because I think being a man today, being a man is being open, being okay to talk about your feelings, be it sadness, whatever it is, being vulnerable, just being honest about where you're at, and letting that out there, and not feeling ashamed because of that. But that does take courage and bravery, because that man there is right, because it's changing, but it's changing very slowly. So when you're doing that around people you've been around all your life that that haven't got to that place yet, that can be challenging.
It's pretty combative, isn't it?
It is.
And it holds a mirror up to their ideas about self as well, which can make them probably quite defensive around you, or
it can do to a certain degree, for sure. It's like, geez, don't go down that road. You're gone way too hippie-ish or whatever it is for me.
That's the term that gets described as hippie-ish.
Exactly. But no, I firmly believe now that as men we have a responsibility just to start doing that and just start showing up in the world, because if we don't, this is where all the stuff that happens that shouldn't happens. If we're holding on to beliefs about ourselves that we're not enough, or that we need to be better than, or we need to be perfect, then we're driven towards drinking more alcohol or whatever it is. We're going to act out in some shape or form if we're clinging on to all of this stuff inside of us.
Or we'll have a war with China or Russia or whatever.
Exactly. Exactly.
My friend Kevin was saying that when you're in this constant state of denial or constant self-check, where you're constantly analysing yourself, am I being manly enough? Am I being this? You're either going to destroy yourself or you're going to destroy other people around you. One of those two things is definitely going to happen. And then, in his opinion, that's what leads to the highest suicide rates in men, and the higher levels of depression, and even that men die slightly earlier than women, and all of those kinds of things in his opinion, would be largely ascribed to that.
I feel like there's so many statistics that play into it. What was it we were saying last night? It's like 95% of all inmates in prisons are male. One of the things that came up last night was the only approved male emotion publicly is anger.
Which is a bit scary, isn't it?
It's really scary.
It's okay to be angry because
that's the most destructive possible emotion. It's not the thing that comes out and builds relationships.
Exactly. Because there's always something underneath anger.
Exactly.
Anger isn't the one. Anger is just a path to something else.
Exactly.
You have kids now. We're kind of jumping ahead a bit, but are they boys or girls?
2 boys.
2 boys.
So
I have a boy too.
Okay,
And I was saying, it was so funny because before I had my son, a lot of my specialties are around women's work. Womb yoga therapy, healthy menstruation practices, all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, I'll have a girl, and then I'll be able to teach them all the stuff that I didn't know, and they're going to have this bonding, and it's going to be great because I'm really in this great place. And then I had a boy, and it was like, okay, God, I need
Where's his womb?
what do I do? Now I have to think about the other side of it, and it's been such an interesting process to see him. And he is really physical. He's really rough and tumble. big personality. He likes to push every boundary, you know, and he has strong anger, you know, and when he feels it, he really feels it. And it's such a fascinating thing to see that even in my house, we make a concerted effort to be like, we can talk about our feelings, and it's okay to feel that. We never say, you're okay, you're okay.
Yeah.
We just say, you're really sad about that, and that's really tough, or whatever. But even with that, he still has that natural instinct of going, I'm grand. And you're not. You're obviously not okay.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm fine. I'm just,
Yeah.
you know, and it's such a pervasive thing.
It is.
And even that it's permissive, because he would be more physical. So say in school or in the playground, he'd be more likely to kind of push other kids. You know, it's never in frustration, it's usually he's trying to connect with them, and he just doesn't. And that's really what we're talking about, isn't it? It's a man way of connection. He's just like, bam, I want to play with you. I'll just push you. But the thing is that people respond to that going, I was just being a boy. And you're like, one part of me's like, oh phew, oh yeah, he's just being a boy. But then you're like, oh no, hang on, I'm playing into this thing now, that it's okay for men to hit. It's okay for men to be angry, and the girls, they go and cry in the corner or whatever.
Which to show you how early it starts.
How early,
Like, so you're building, like, you're standing as the major male role model to your two boys, 1 and 3 years old.
Yeah, 1 and 3.
And so we know, like, pretty much a lot of their attitudes to women later life, all these sorts of things, and how they act in the world will be fixed to a large degree by the time they're 5. Are you? How do you? Like, what for you is what are you trying to put out there for them, or how do you set the groundwork for them, or is there any? I mean, it must be a big challenge.
It is, because I think as a parent, we often, for me anyway, I'm like, it's not what we say as a parent, it's actually what we do, because we can be saying all the right things, but we're not doing it ourselves. But this has been a learning curve for me, because after everything that's happened, my anger, because you know the 5 stages of bereavement after everything that's happened, I weave in and out of all of those. And anger shows up for me every so often, and unless I catch myself in the middle of it'll just seep out. It won't be in an aggressive way or anything, but I can just feel my temper just getting that bit shorter. For me, I just need to go, okay, I need to take a step back and just, you know, do something, go into the car, have a roar and a scream or a cry or whatever, just to let that go, and then go back in to the house again. But I think, all I can do as a parent, as a dad, is to do my best in terms of do what I actually want for them to do. So if I want for them to, you know, not be a bully and not to be afraid of these feelings that are going to come up within their system, so I need to be able to be the person that goes, you know what, I'm sad today, I'm going to, you know, have a cry about such and such that happened, or I'm angry right now and I just need to remove myself and just go and do whatever. Go and roar and scream in the car, somewhere that it's confined and it's safe, and I'm not going to be harmful to anybody else, and then come back in just being somewhat cleansed in a way.
I think isn't it interesting that our natural, certainly for me, I found that even with that, your natural instinct is to hide the feel. You know, you kind of have a sense of, you don't want to be sad around your kids all the time, you don't want to be angry, but actually it's the modelling of how you deal. It's not that you're angry, it's how you deal with that anger and what you show them, how you deal with that anger, that like, we're all going to be angry.
Exactly.
Not that I'm never angry.
It's a natural, it's a human emotion.
Exactly. And then show them, okay, but when I'm angry, this is what I do. Or when I'm sad, this is what I do. And that's where it starts, doesn't it? That's all we can do. I mean, who knows how that's going to turn out.
Exactly.
My son's 4, I have no idea what's going to happen. But
it's a big gamble.
But we're constantly going to be learning. This is, I mean, I struggle with this. I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't be like this around my kids. Or, you know, if I do something for a split second, I make the wrong decision, and I say something I shouldn't have said, I'm just like, for a while, it's like, I'm the worst parent ever. It's like, you're not. You're a human being. We're going to make mistakes. All we can do is do our level best as much as we possibly can, and just didn't teach them to do the same. Because if we try and be perfect, then we're going to really be hard on ourselves, and it's going to be. We're teaching them they have to be perfect in as well.
I know. Well, that's it.
None of us are perfect. We're all.
How do you physically manage them? Like physically, are you like, because 2 boys are going to be a handful physically? How are you managing that?
I mean, that's been such a challenge. Like Sarah has had to do so much more as a mother than she should have had. If I didn't have the accident, I would have been very hands-on. It is at the beginning. It's extremely hard because with the baby, I had to have them lifted into my arms. I could feed them a bottle, so I could, but I couldn't do any more than that for fear of obviously dropping them. My God. So there had to be someone with me at all times. As time has progressed, physically I've progressed slowly as well, which has been great. So I can be on my own with them now, which is massive. Yeah. When I lift them up, it's a struggle to lift them up, and if I have to move them, but I can do it. Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm going to rehab for. But no, I manage now, but things like that require hand functions, such as changing nappies. No, if that to be done quite quickly. It could take me half an hour to change a nappy on a good day. Even have to lift them up on the table.
Stopwatch, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And lo and behold, they would definitely pee in the glass as well. So it's just things that require a lot of hand function I struggle with. But yeah, I manage now to a certain degree, and I can strap him in out of the car now. Right. I can bring MJ, the 3-year-old, after the park, because he's quite good. Like, kids are amazing. They adjust to somebody with an accident. Like,
how do they respond to you, your capabilities? Or?
Yeah, he just knows now. We get out of the car, out of my crutches, he grabs onto one of my crutches. It just happens, an automatic thing, and he doesn't run off. He's quite a chill out character. But yeah, kids are just amazing in terms of how they adapt to their environment as such.
I think we don't give them enough credit for that, though, do we?
We don't. They teach us. Like I've learned more from my kids than I have from any grown adults over the last couple of years.
And isn't it that they just meet you at your level without prejudice as well, which is such a refreshing thing. If you're trying to redefine something for yourself, like what that is, they're not going, his daddy's on crutches. They're just like his dad. That fact. My son's really like, he'd go up to everyone in a wheelchair or anyone with any kind of different abilities, and he's straight up like, so tell me, like, what's going on with you? How come you're in the wheelchair? And asking the questions. And people react in one of two ways. They either don't like it at all, or they're really open and delighted that he's asking the questions, and that I'm open enough to let him ask the question without trying to fill in the gap for him. But he doesn't see it any different. It's just
just another human being.
Just another human being that's just different. We all have a heart.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about like what you're doing at this stage rehab-wise. I know you mentioned like you're doing, well, you haven't mentioned, but I've heard that you're doing like, you've travelled for laser therapy a little bit. You're doing rehab here. How, like what's your day like? How much time you put into that, or what things have you? What's your progression like at this stage?
So rehab it's 3 days. Rehab. I go to Fit 100. John Bruder. I go to a guy in Cork, Kieran Corcoran. So it's physiotherapy, gym afterwards, osteopathy, and I see a craniosacral therapist as well.
Oh, cool.
So it's a combination, and there's other health things involved with a spinal cord injury as well that have been impacted. You have to be mindful of, bladder, bowel, and all this kind of
how much has that affected on that your?
It has. I mean, that's been affected. So with me, I get a warning in terms of when I have to go for a pee, but it's a warning that like my bladder is just contracting. So then it's like, oh my god, I've got like 5 minutes now to make it to the bathroom.
And it's got to be done.
So it's got to be done then. So in that regard, it's it's quite challenging. You get used to it. You customise after a while. It's been nearly 10 years now, or 7 years since the accident now.
7 years.
7 years. So you kind of get used to something like that after a while. And sometimes it can be challenging. You get kidney infections, for example. But it's just something you need to be mindful of. So with me, I just need to be mindful of all aspects of my health, my diet, my mental and emotional well-being, my physical well-being. So in terms of rehab, I travel 3 days a week, and I go to the gym. Then stretching is a big part of it as well. And I go to the gym 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week. I just have to be mindful of doing as much as I possibly can, because if I stay still for too long, I seize up and I get all spasmy and.
And so where do you seize up? Just straight down your back, or is it everywhere?
Everywhere, and it's the hands will go first, and then we kind of want to revert back into being into the fetal position again.
Interesting.
And my fingers will close. Just open up and keep my hands open. And then so if I sit down for an hour, for example, I would just stand up and I would stretch, get on the floor, stretch my back, and then go for a walk. It's just about being mindful of it all the time, because I know if I don't, the following day I'll just feel lethargic and
really notice a big difference.
I would do. And I get cold as well quite easy, because my circulation isn't as good. And so
what's the laser therapy then? Maybe the lesser known of the things.
So I went to France. I went on numerous occasions, and it was insane. This guy used to put lasers on different parts of my body, primarily the feet. just to fire up the signals from my brain down to my feet again. And it was really, really intense. I'd go for a week or 2 weeks. The weeks went for 2 weeks. I just wouldn't be able to move after coming home. Just being so exhausted from it. Just completely
stimulating your central nervous system.
Stimulating everything. So I used to get that done. I've got it, God knows how many times I've got it done now. But then I was due to travel there, it was about 1.5 years ago maybe. And the guy that I used to go to had he had a brain aneurysm getting on a flight from Paris. Flight in Paris. So I haven't been able to go back over there again. So since that, I used to find it hugely beneficial. I know there was people coming from all over the world. So there was a couple there from Australia. Anyway, so that's no longer there. It's no longer available. Maybe that will come back again in some shape or form. So for now, I just focus on the physical rehab I spoke about there.
Do they do anything like e-stim, like electrostimulation? You know, those things where they use kind of what do they call it? Not cathodes, whatever they're called, but the little electrodes attached to the muscles.
I use those every night.
Okay, interesting.
And
do you find them useful?
Brilliant.
In terms of muscle tone, or
muscle tone and spasticity, and for me, my hands is where I focus on mainly. So we've got into this ritual now every night. In the evening, we sit down and watch TV for about an hour, or we listen to something, whatever. So that's my time, is to strap up, get the hands. So I strap them all the way around my arms here, and just fires up. But it's amazing, absolutely amazing, and I find it even the following morning, the circulation is improved.
Interesting.
So that's a major part of it.
Wow.
Can we just jump back a little way?
Yeah, of course.
When you came home then, and you were in the middle of this time where you were dealing with depression and dealing with these emotions, and I think maybe you hadn't yet gone to the workshop.
Yeah.
You also lost another brother.
Yeah. So I was wasn't he home from hospital? I came home in August, and that was just when we were just in an absolute whirlwind. And then James died in October. James was only 16. Another keen sports player, mad into hurling again, and he died of sudden adult death syndrome. Just myself and Sarah were in a bar getting our lunch. It was 1 o'clock in the day, and I remember in the bar just not wanting to be there because I was so lost, but forcing myself to be there because Sarah obviously wants to get out and about. Then I heard that James has collapsed, and before I knew it, we were following an ambulance up to Mallow Hospital, and we were told up there that he passed away.
And what is sudden adult death syndrome? What is
so? Is this with his heart went out of rhythm or sync, and there's no explanation as to why it happened. We went back and asked doctors afterwards, and sometimes no matter what test you get done, it may not show up.
It's often in young men who are really sporty.
Really sporty and fit, it seems to be.
The fitness seems to be a key thing. Male and also fit. That's the two that I've heard. Which seems so.
It seems pretty insane.
And how it's hard to even. I lost my father when I was 9. And that was kind of the biggest event that's happened in my life, and and I can still feel the repercussions of that in my life. It's how many years later, so many. It's hard for me to even conceive of all that stuff happening to you and to your family in such a short space of time. How did the grief even... We did a podcast on grief recently, and we were talking about how grief manifests in the body, and how it's different in different people, and how we as a society deal with grieving or don't really deal with grieving, and how we kind of constantly looking to just get to the end of grieving, get through the grieving, and then it's done. Whereas we all know that's not the way that works. It's a process that's ongoing. How did you have any help around grief? Was it really this workshop? How did that work?
I think it was that workshop that I went to, because James died in October, and the workshop was on the following, I think it was March maybe. So I spent I was just severely depressed for the majority of that time. And then with that workshop, that was the first time I actually started to let some of it out, and started to open up, and that was the turning point for me, because I was like, there's another way here. I don't have to hold on to all of this myself. I don't have to hold on to all this sadness. People can actually see me here, because that was something I feared. I feared someone seeing me in this way, someone seeing me depressed, someone seeing me sad, someone seeing me angry. You know, I didn't want people to see me. I wanted people to see the sports player that was there beforehand, that was obviously gone. So yeah, and so when I opened up in that workshop and people were kind of compassionate towards me, it was like, what? It was a bit of a shock. People are actually okay around these emotions, and so that was the turning point. And since then, it's been an ongoing journey with grief. So it's been like anniversaries, I find, because it's their anniversaries there recently, and the accident as well. I find it just all comes back.
It's pretty much all October, is that right?
Yeah, so James died in October, I had my accident in October, and Mike had died in August, so Mike was 2 months beforehand, around the same time. So for us, it kind of continues on. As a family, I can see it. We all changed before, just at the beginning of August. Even if you didn't know what time of year it was, you can just see, you can see my parents, you know, Connor, my brother, you can see it just being more intense around.
Have the work that you've done emotionally on yourself, has that filtered out into the rest of your family, your parents? And
it has to a certain degree. So it has. I think my parents are that bit more. Parents are very Irish, very old-fashioned, very old-fashioned. Not old-fashioned, but they kind of they're used to not speaking about how they're feeling and what's going on for them, and then. They've definitely changed to a certain degree. So
they must see how much you've coped with and the mindset you've achieved.
Yeah.
That's always, that's an inspiration for people who are standing at a distance and for people who are close to you.
Yeah.
I mean, they must be scratching their head to some degree. That's this question. Do they have faith, and do you have faith, or like?
They do. Yeah. So my dad in particular, my dad would be very religious. So he would say he goes to church every weekend, and. Yeah, so my mum would be religious as well, and she would say her prayers. She'd say her prayers a lot. She talked to the lads in her prayers, and off and on, I'm sure Dad would be the exact same. Yeah. For me, I wouldn't. The religious side of things just kind of frustrates me a little bit, but I'd be extremely, extremely spiritual.
Yeah.
I would just feel, after everything that's happened, I would feel so much closer to God. Definitely, and I'd find that in some way I'm just being helped and supported by some, it's God or higher power, the universe, whatever it is.
Sure.
But for me, I'd find that I'm somewhat supported, and I would find that I'm closer to my brothers that have passed on. I just feel to some degree they're kind of here looking after all of us as well.
Isn't that a really interesting thing that happens? It was the same when my dad died. Was just over 10 years ago. We weren't that close when he was alive. Since he's passed away, I'm much closer to him now, like in terms of just being able to see what he was doing for the real effort of it, and seeing the things that he enjoyed and being able to tap into them, where I was very resistant to them when he was alive, but able to kind of explore them and understand a bit more about why he liked those things and what he got from them and what it does for his personality, and actually how that's also in here, it's in me as well. And just kind of understanding the family connection. It's like, well, we weren't that different. We actually kind of shared a lot. And I think it must be the same to a degree with your brothers as well.
Because we all have different strategies. All we want to do is, because my family were extremely, extremely close. Sport. Even my parents not going on their holidays. When I was at the age of 12, they were like, oh no, we'll postpone it, we'll go at a different time. Just goes to show how loving and caring they actually are. But yeah, you're right. Everyone has different ways of being in the world, and there's always reasons as to why. For example, there's reasons as to why my parents maybe don't want to be open and express themselves in a way. There's an element of fear there for them, because they're like, well, if I do open up here, where's it going to end?
Where's it going to go?
They've had so much to deal with. Losing 2 sons, it's like totally understandable that there's a huge fear factor there, and it's like, we'll deal with this in our own time, in our own way. And it's everyone to their own. Everyone has to deal with things in their own way, their own pace, exactly.
And do you? I don't know this, but do you give talks? Do you go and talk to people about what you've learned or how it is?
Yeah, I've done a few talks. Already I've gone around to a few schools. I've been into a couple of organisations just to explain my story and what has happened. But I think it's what I've learned as a result of everything that's happened. You know, just about, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to express yourself. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be, because we're surrounded by, you know, organisations, you know, we're sports teams. We're surrounded by, you need to be a certain way. You know, we need to make money. We need to win. We need to be perfect. We need to do this, that, and the other. There needs to be a space there for us as human beings, just to be able to take a step back from it all and go, do you know what? This is how I'm actually really feeling right now. This is what's going on for me in my internal world. And just to have someone to talk to I think that's hugely important, having someone in our lives that we can trust, that we can just go to and just open up and express ourselves.
It must be such a powerful thing, because I've listened, like I said, it's not a world that I've ever been part of, this kind of, I've never lived in one place for a long time where there's a big long community, everyone knows you, or I've never been part of a sports team type situation where everyone takes care of you. But when I think about how it was for you growing up and how it is in these teams, and then when we think about, okay, we want to look at maybe deconstructing these male archetypes or changing them, it'd be a hugely powerful thing for them to have a different kind of role model. To have a man who's really powerful, who's really solid in himself, who's able to come and say, this is another way. You can be a man and you can be this. And I think that's hugely needed.
It's interesting. I mean, we treat like muscle in terms of brawn, the exterior appearance of that, as reflective of the mindset. But the two they don't necessarily coexist, and quite often they're actually divested from each other, kind of necessarily, because usually one is actually protecting a vulnerability for the other in a large way, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's a really interesting time at the moment where this is all kind of taking place and is beginning to, I mean, have you seen a shift in terms of young men in Charleville, in the GA here, in terms of their openness to deal with emotions, in terms of how they treat leadership or they treat those ideas? Is that, do you see a difference from when you were kind of growing up in that?
I do. I think over the last while I kind of haven't been involved in the underage structure enough, but I can from the younger lads that I do speak to. I think it's much more challenging for them now, because social media, you know, I didn't grow up in that era of social media. For them, I think it's just they're surrounded by measurements like 24/7. It's like constant. And how, for them, that is a complete, such a challenge. So it is. But when I speak to, you know, a lot of younger lads, particularly the younger lads, you know, playing sport, I do find that they're quite open in themselves as well. Even more so, because I would have reflected in my life, and geez, would I be that open? Some of them, I don't know what. I can't speak on a large scale here. I feel a lot of the younger lads I've spoken, they seem to be quite open in themselves, which is brilliant to see, because that's what we need now. These are the men that are going to, you know, be the future of Ireland.
I mean, there's a definite granulation happening in society in terms of like sexuality, for instance. Like, so there's some really interesting study done, I think it was last year in the UK, where I think 60% of kids of 14 years old, something like this, I hope I'm not butchering this statistic, but about 60% of kids of 14 years old didn't identify as either heterosexual or homosexual.
60%?
Like an overwhelming number, like more than half of them. They were considering themselves as somewhat sexually fluid, or they weren't considering themselves as sexual at all, or whatever. But it's really interesting, because I think if we were asked that when we were kids, certainly my age, it would have been heterosexual. That's it. I'm not saying anything else, even if it exists.
So I think it's just brilliant to see, isn't it?
So and it's just that openness as well, isn't it? To just, whatever way it is, that there's an openness to possibility, even that they're saying, I don't know, maybe I could be something other than this. Maybe I'm not going to be the way that it's just being given to me, like I'm a boy, and that means I'd marry a girl. Because I see it with my son. I was saying this last night. People always go, he's a real man's man, isn't he? You don't have to worry about him. Like,
what does that even mean?
What does that mean? And a few times I've gone, I don't have to worry about him. What is the end of that sentence? You know, and then people are like, oh no, you know, I don't mean anything, but they do mean something when you said that. And they also always go, you know, when you get married, you'll have a wife and you'll have kids. And I'm always like, oh, and you don't want to be too ridiculous about it. You're not trying to go like, oh, no one can say any of those things, because statistically, probably he will grow up and have a wife and have kids, or have a wife. I don't know. But at the same time, it's that you just don't want it being put on them constantly. That those are the options those are the only options. That's the path that's laid out for them.
Yeah.
That they can have I could do whatever. I can be whoever I am.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
They probably won't be doing what we expect anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, the world is moving so fast now. In 20, 30 years' time, who knows? Like, who knows? I mean, you know.
But even
go on.
Seeing how open they will be. So if they're learning that at home, you know, if they're learning, oh my God, I can be whatever I want, they're going to go on and they're going to be so open to other people around them then as well, be it in school, be it wherever. Yeah. So even in any moment, like, we're teaching unconsciously, so we are.
Yeah.
So what an amazing world it would be if everyone was that.
This is it. If we learnt it from such a young age, that's where it has to start, doesn't it? That's our job now. Is we can't change it here. We can change it inside ourselves, and then we can model it to the next generation.
Exactly.
What does it look like for you going ahead? What if you look at your life now compared to when you think back? That first question that I asked you, on what was your life going to look like when you were a kid? What is it for Dessie in the future?
For me, I've complained or changed completely as a human being. So I've gone from me being this man that's completely, I'm not going to hear my feelings, to a person now that's maybe too. I cried to home and away there a couple of weeks back. My wife was like, what are you doing? So I got to bring that back a little bit. But yeah, so for me going forward, it's about just being as open and honest as I can possibly be. And I went back to college, and I would never have seen myself doing this. And I did a master's in life coaching and management coaching, and I did a counselling diploma with Clearmind as well. So just finished that. So so my going forward, it's going to be a matter of maybe just working with people to help them get over their personal struggles, challenges, anxiety, depression, whatever it is, or if they have goals within the workplace, whatever. Yeah. But just being of support to another human being move forward, that's something I definitely see myself doing, because I just get a huge satisfaction from it, for sure. So that's
such a lot to offer in that area. I mean, such an inspiration to see someone who's been through, because for you it's not even just having lost your two brothers would have been a huge thing, but that you also then had the emotional side of that, and then also suffered a physical loss at the same time. It's such an unique combination, and it's so powerful to hear you speak like that, and to see the potential, the determination, and what you've done, and how your mindset, because you weren't a person like me who grew up very, very hippie, community type person. You didn't have that. No. And it's such an amazing transformation that's happened inside you. It's amazing to hear you.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk at food and cancer thing recently in Dublin, and one of the women in the room, there was a lady who had cancer we were talking to, and a lot of the people in the room had cancer and recovering from it. And one of the ladies said, like, actually, I feel like this is a gift. This is kind of like, this is sort of the thing that you guys haven't got to get, because you don't know how you're going to die. We know, and we've got one thing we know we're going to do it, and it gives her great resilience, great strength, and great direction in life. And it's a strange idea to see anything that's that strongly negative societally as a gift, but it's anything that kind of gives you. I mean, you've awoken as a human being, it sounds like. Yeah. It's been a huge transition. I can't imagine receiving empathy from a person who's in a position of being able to help me with emotions. Somebody who's had to cope with that much themselves, and you can it certainly transitions. Like I was telling people when they were asking who we were coming down to talk to, I was like, let's just get Dessie Fitzgerald. Lost his two brothers, lost use of his arms and legs, and he's on recovery path. And basically he's going to be telling us how it's not so bad when I get a stain on my shirt, a coffee stain on my shirt. And it just that contextualizes for the rest of us what life throws at you. It's your response to it is really what makes the man, isn't it? Yeah. And
I think someone recently asked me, what if there's any good, did any good come from all of that has happened? And that was something that was, have resonated with me, given what you've said there, in that I would, looking back at my life now, I would have hated to continue on the same path, just doing the same thing day in, day out, without having any real sense of purpose, and that, I'll go to work, I'll play sport, I'll come home and do the same thing the following day. To me, looking back at it, I am glad because now I feel like I've more meaning and more sense of purpose because of the spiritual side of things, because I find myself being more open in every degree. So yeah, definitely find that I've more of a sense of purpose, and I think I'm more aware of what I truly value in life.
Yeah.
It's made me really focus on what I do value in life, and everything that's happened has changed, Jim. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a reason for everything happening in life.
Yeah.
It can be good or bad, but it can kind of guide us down a direction. For me, I'm glad it's guided me down a direction I've gone down for sure. Yeah, kind of feel grateful for it in that regard. I'd love for it to not have been so severe, obviously. But just a little. Yeah.
Jesus,
but no, it is. It's good to laugh at it. It needs to be laughed at times. But yeah, I would much prefer to have reached it with just a slight little flicker rather than a kick in the. Yeah.
3 kicks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, just gotta go with the flow with it all now and trust that it's happened for a reason.
Yeah.
I think no matter what we do, and
use it.
And use it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not dwell on it.
Like I'm more powerful. I can't really express enough how powerful it is to hear. It's a big deal.
To be here as well, to be in the locker room here at GA Fitch, it's special.
Yeah, even for me it's special. I haven't been here in quite a while.
Really?
Yeah, so it is for sure. Yeah, it brings back so many memories. I think one of my proudest moments ever would have been my brothers, me and my 3 brothers would have sat around here. It was probably only a couple of months before I had the accident, but we were all on the same team.
Really?
Although I was like, fuck, geez, the 4 of us are here. Although we were going training the same evening. I was like, yeah, it was a huge deal. So we were inside in this dressing room. So I haven't been back here that often. So it's so it's nice to be here doing the interview with you guys today as well.
Well, it's a privilege to be here with you, really.
Thank you so much.
Very welcome.
So when people want to find out more about Dessie Fitzgerald, DessieFitzgerald.com.
Yeah, I'm just changing my website, so it's going to be a life coaching, mind health coaching, performance coaching website. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So have a look.
And will that still be under DessieFitzgerald.com?
It's going to be DessieFitzgerald.com.
Okay. Yeah. And are you on social media?
Yeah, getting into it. I struggle with the social media side of things, but definitely, yeah. So there's going to be a Dessie Fitzgerald's coaching Facebook page, and going to go onto Twitter and all that. So yeah. Instagram for sure. Yeah, it's going to have to happen. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, we'll point people towards all that, obviously.
Brilliant.
So definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. So lovely to have a chat with both of you.
Cool. Okay.
Brilliant.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
And please remember to like and subscribe, post your comments below, and anything that you have to ask Dessie or sort of say about this chat. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
So welcome back, Finn and Lydia here.
Hello.
From Wandering into Wellness. I thought it would be interesting, since we were talking about protein powder and how that supports our muscles and helps us in our exercise, that I would challenge Finn to a wall squat.
Okay. Wall squat off. So let's hope the wall squat off works, because we got our new zest today.
We have.
We had a new zest. So it's like
new zest in this morning.
modern day ready rec. It is fuel for the muscles, and you guys can go to newzest.co.uk and you can use the code wellness15, which is our coupon code, a very special little coupon code. So you get 15% discount of all new zest products, which we are big fans of. We don't really support any other kind of companies in this sort of way. We're not supported by any other companies in this way, but we're really, really keen on New Zest, and
we're just like nerdy big fans, really, aren't we?
We're big nerdy big fans. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
We're going to spread the New Zest word. So we are going to do a wall squat off and see who lasts the longest. I feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I've already took 2 classes today and just done a big, massive exercise
this morning. That's like, I know it was
did a workout like 7 million hours ago. But
and
anyway,
cycled twice today.
It's a fair contest. It's a fair contest. Let's go.
So if I fail, I'm like doubly failing. This hurts. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to set the clock here.
Backs against the wall. Well, I mean, everyone will just see who fails, really, won't they?
Excuse my language.
Backs against the wall. Slide down. So your bum needs to be parallel to your knees. There we go. So Finn, whilst we're in this wall squat, I think I would challenge you to finding some interesting things to say about the letters of New Zest. So tell us some facts about New Zest, beginning with N. N is for?
N is for not the protein you'd imagined. Whey protein is the obvious one, but this one is a European golden pea.
U.
U is for ugly, not us. We are all we're based on the beauty of of vegan protein. And ugly is animal agriculture that's intensive rearing, and this is not an ugly product. This is a
really
product that is like
right?
clean inside and out.
Z.
Z's an evil one, eh? Z is for all the zeal you can muster out of a day. New Zest has got like a squillion health ambassadors, top tennis players, top rugby players. Oh, Finn's slipping. They've got like all the New Zealand rugby team on it, like Mananu and all these sorts of amazing guys, and that is because it makes you perform. It's not because they're paid by it. They literally don't get paid anything by New Zest.
No, that's super cool, isn't it? E.
E is for goddamn ethics. Ethics in a company. So when New Zest approached Dr. Robert Verkerk of the Alliance for Natural Health 3 years ago to produce a multivitamin, he said no, because you'll make me compromise on my ethics, you'll make me compromise on my standards. And so they said, okay, well, what if we don't make you compromise? He said, like, okay, well, give it a shot. And so he gave it one shot, and they have a product called Good Green Stuff, which is what Robert Verkerk says is the ultimate in terms of nutritional everyday needs for 99% of all the audience. Go on.
Is it E? S.
S is for sweating. If you're a fan of sweating, then use this helps your muscles recover big time. So you've got leucine, arginine, valine, isoleucine, all the ones that are really key amino acids for growth hormone.
T.
T is for teetering on the brink of failure.
But yet, luckily, we took our New Zest, and so we're just going
to make it through. Yay!
Yay,
Let's see. We haven't failed yet.
No. How much longer do you reckon you've got? I'm reaching, we're shaking.
I'm reaching, shaking as well. I'm like, where is it hurting most?
Quads.
Yeah, but where in the quads? The front of them? The middle of them? Yeah, ditto. Oh, burning more than shaking though.
So bad. So we probably finished.
Okay, one of us has to fail.
Remember our code, holy. Remember our code, wellness15.
Wellness15, use that.co.uk.
Go.
Best of luck. I win. Yay!